Greetings, esteemed guests. It's an absolute pleasure to welcome you to the 23rd Dr. Charles Perkins AO Memorial Oration. My name is Lisa Jackson-Pulver and I serve as the Deputy Vice-Chancellor for Indigenous Strategies and Services here at the University of Sydney. My co-host for this evening is none other than the distinguished journalist Dan Borcher, ABC's national correspondent for The Voice to Parliament. Thanks so much for joining us, Dan.
Thank you. Well, thanks very much for having me, Professor Lisa Jackson-Pulver, AM. Now, she did growl me about using the full name and said, just call me Lisa, but I figured at the first instance in this hallowed hall, it was so important to do that and to acknowledge the space that we're in and Lisa's leadership over a very long time, but particularly in this year and the interactions that we've had together. Without any further ado, though, it's my great pleasure to welcome up Uncle Charles Madden to perform the Welcome to Country. Please make him welcome.
Good evening, folks. My name is Charles Madden, but known around the inner city of Sydney as Chicka. Now, that's a nickname that I got many, many years ago going to Redfern Public School, which is now NCIE, the National Centre of Indigenous Excellence. Folks, I'm from Gadigal land, Aboriginal land. That's the land we're on at the moment. For many, many years, I've lived and worked around the city of Sydney. I've been involved with quite a few Aboriginal organisations over the years. I've been a director with the Aboriginal Medical Service at Redfern for over 40 years. Also a director with the Redfern Aboriginal Housing Company, Aboriginal Hostels Australia, and the Metropolitan Local Aboriginal Land Council. I've got to mention it, folks. Also a life member of the Redfern All Blacks Rugby League Football Club. Thank you. Folks, for many, many years I've lived and worked around the city of Sydney. I'd like to take this special moment tonight to extend a warm and sincere welcome to all of my Aboriginal brothers and sisters, non-Aboriginal brothers and sisters. If we have any brothers and sisters here from the Torres Strait or further far across the seas, welcome. Welcome to Gadigal land. The Gadigal clan is one of 29 that makes up the Eora Nation. The Eora Nation is bordered by 3 distinctive landmarks. We have the Hawkesbury River to the north, and the Peen to the west, and the Georges River to the south. Those 3 rivers form the boundaries of the Eora Nation. Folks, if you've travelled across this great city of ours today, the state or this great country, or from afar, welcome. Welcome to Gadigal land. Enjoy your stay, have a safe and trouble-free trip home. Once again, welcome, welcome, welcome. Enjoy the evening, folks. Thank you.
It's always such a privilege and a joy to hear you speak to us in such a gorgeous way. Thank you so much, Uncle Chicka, for your moving and warm welcome. Your words always leave a lasting impression upon all of us, something for us to learn. Usually, I would invite Chancellor Belinda Hutchinson, ACAM, and Vice-Chancellor Mark Scott, AO, to the stage, but unfortunately, they are away and couldn't be here with us tonight, but they have left us a message. Let's listen to this now.
Good evening and welcome. Let me begin by acknowledging the Gadi people, the traditional custodians of these lands, and pay my respects to elders past and present, and all Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander people who are attending in person or viewing online. As Chancellor of the University of Sydney, it is my great pleasure to welcome you to the Great Hall on our Gadigal campus, as we reflect and honour the life and work of one of our most impactful alumni, Dr. Charles Perkins. My sincere apologies that I cannot join you in person for the 2023 Dr. Charles Perkins Oration and Memorial Prize, as I am travelling with the Professor Mark Scott, our Vice-Chancellor, on behalf of the University. Each year, we celebrate Charles Perkins and his tireless work and service to his community and country. We must ensure his invaluable work lives on from this generation to the many who will follow. Our sincere thanks and welcome to his daughter Rachel Perkins, who we are thrilled to be hearing from shortly as this year's orator. Rachel has been proactively engaged in the incredibly important work in support of the Voice to Parliament. She is dedicating her time to advocate for the significance of the upcoming referendum and educating individuals about the positive changes it will bring for First Nations. The upcoming referendum is an important time in our country's history. We are being asked to vote to make a lasting and meaningful change that will honour the rightful place of Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander people as the first people who inhabited this land. It is of utmost importance that we honour and embrace the knowledge and immense contribution of First Nations communities that have graced this land for over 60,000 years, engaging in a continuous journey of learning and drawing wisdom from their rich heritage. Meanwhile, here at our university, we are committed to continuously embedding Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander voices in all our teaching and research. Through the ongoing work of our One Sydney Many People strategy, we continue to enhance the higher education journey of all Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander students and staff. Recently, I had the opportunity to meet with a number of our Gadigal scholars, such impressive young people whose achievements already at this university have been stellar. I know they will go on to be future leaders for their community and their country. I would also like to take this moment to extend my heartfelt congratulations to the recipients of the prestigious Charles Perkins Prize, Rachel Allen, Anika Kapeen, and Kiona Wilson. Your unwavering dedication and hard work have been commendable, and as you embark on new endeavours, I have no doubt that you will continue to excel. Your achievements inspire us all. Thank you all and enjoy tonight's oration.
Good evening and welcome to the University of Sydney. I'm sorry I can't be with you in person for this year's Dr. Charles Perkins Oration, particularly during this vital moment in our nation's history. But unfortunately, I find myself overseas on university business. I'd like to acknowledge the traditional owners of the land where we gather today, the Gadigal people, and pay my respects to elders past, present and emerging. And I extend a very warm welcome to the Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander people in the audience. It's my great honour to welcome you all to our campus this evening to reflect on the legacy of one of our most impactful alumni, Dr. Charles Perkins AO, the first Aboriginal man to graduate from the University of Sydney and a true leader for good. This university has proudly stood for over 170 years. We're the oldest in the country. It's a place of education, it's a place of discovery, it's a place that exists to serve the diverse communities of this state, indeed this country, by pursuing leadership for good. Leadership in research, leadership through teaching, and by creating the next generation of leaders, leaders like Dr. Charles Perkins. The traditional owners of this land have, of course, been educating and discovering here for tens of thousands of years. Their knowledge and cultures have been central to the landscape, identity and character of the university. And we are deeply committed to ensuring that we, as Sydney's university, takes a leading role in the creation and sharing of this knowledge. We have a critical role to play in the sharing of the stories of those who've cared for these lands for generations before us, and in nurturing tomorrow's storytellers, encouraging intelligent, informed and engaged young people to take a central place in shaping the destiny of our nation and in creating a shared sense of belonging, just as they did with the Freedom Ride, which set out from here more than 50 years ago. This year's speaker, Rachel Perkins, needs no introduction. Her life is so closely entwined with all that followed her father's historic journey. Rachel has dedicated her life's work to ensuring the stories, voices and histories of Australia's First Nations people are heard and seen on screen. For over 3 decades, she's been inspiring the next generation of First Nations storytellers. Rachel's career in film and media has led her to become an educator, a leader and a mentor. She's co-chair of Australians for Indigenous Constitutional Recognition, tirelessly advocating and promoting the importance of the voice to Parliament. I extend my sincere thanks to Rachel for taking time out of the campaign to join us tonight. It's our great honour to welcome you as the keynote speaker at this year's oration, in this, the most important of years, as we prepare to take a critical step in healing and reconciliation and ensuring Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander voices are heard on the matters affecting First Nations people. In addition, I extend my warmest congratulations to the exceptional recipients of the 2023 Charles Perkins Memorial Prize. Congratulations to Rachel, Annika and Kiona. Your achievements are remarkable, reflecting your immense determination and commitment, and we eagerly anticipate the positive impact you'll continue to create to our community, to our country and to our society. Thank you for joining us to celebrate Leadership for Good, for all that's been achieved and for recognising all that now needs to be done. I hope you enjoy the evening.
As we continue, we're delighted to introduce an exceptional program that recognises academic achievement amongst our Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander students, the Charles Perkins Memorial Prize. This award highlights the outstanding Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander scholars here at the university. I would like to invite Charles Perkins to come to the stage and assist me in welcoming 3 extraordinary students and to receive their awards. Please join me. So we already know the names of our recipients, but I will go through them one at a time. Our first prize recipient is Rachel Allen from Medicine and Health. Please join us. Our second prize recipient is Anika Capine from Medicine and Health. Come on up, Anika. Unfortunately, our third prize recipient is unable to be here. Kiona Wilson is also a scholar in Medicine and Health. Congratulations, Kiona. I would like to take a moment to extend our warmest congratulations to each and every one of you. Your exceptional academic achievements have earned you this very well-deserved recognition. We commend your dedication, your hard work and your unwavering commitment to excellence. Please join me, everybody, in a very loud round of applause. Thank you, everybody.
Please give them another round of applause. In just a moment, Deborah Cheaton Freyan, AO, will perform her own composition, Banjul Lingu, accompanied by Sarah Presswidge on cello, Daniel Yidden and Yunjung Byun on piano. But first, here's Deborah on why she chose Banjul Lingu.
I am a member of the Stolen Generations. I was adopted into a family, and that family loved me as if I was their own. But of course, there was another family that I actually did belong to, Monica's family. Now, Monica was a young woman when she gave birth to me, didn't have the means to look after me, but her brother, my uncle, Monica's eldest brother, was very successful in his life. He was the legend that Australia knew as Jimmy Little. So he came to the Cheatham family home and he brought with him a man that he thought could help convince my parents, who'd adopted me, to give me up and to allow me to grow up with my Aboriginal family. And that man was Charles Perkins. Charles Perkins came essentially to ask, could they have me back? Could I be brought up in my Aboriginal family? Now, my adopted parents said no. They ruled that out as a possibility. They loved me, they wanted to take care of me. But I didn't learn that story about Charles Perkins until I was in my 30s. I feel like there's a connection to this event. I feel like there is a connection to Charles, a man that I've always admired, a man who could see what I would be given if I could grow up in my community. I feel honoured to be able to pay my respects to him in this way. When I was thinking about what I would sing at this oration, a whole range of things went through my mind. What I decided on in the end was a song. It's called Banjul Lingu, and it's about returning to country and respecting the land that we are on. But at the heart, this duet is, like a lot of music I write, it's an invitation to those listening to think about their belonging to country and how they might further that.
A sacred place still holds the dream of ancient Gullah, and we return here in Jacob. We return. And carry on
Thank you so very much, Deborah, Sarah, Daniel, Unjung. That felt like an absolute experience. Please give them another round of applause. This year's oration will be given by an accomplished director, screenwriter, and one of our most impactful storytellers whose influence reaches far beyond her work on the screen. She's won numerous accolades, including the AFI and IF Awards, the UN Peace Media Prize, TV Week Logie, and the Writers and Directors Guild of Australia Awards. Please join me in welcoming proud Aranda and Kalkadoon woman, Rachel Perkins.
Thank you. Oh. Thank you very much. I'm so proud to be here in this place, a place that contributes to Black excellence in this country. Congratulations to the award winners this year. I am blown away by the art of Deborah Cheetham, the way she entwines ancient culture of this country with European traditions. It's a thing of beauty. And I am so lucky to be able to call you my friend. Chika, you are a true gentleman, and I am very proud to have you as a member of our family. Thank you for your welcome. To the University of Sydney, thank you for making this space for Indigenous voices over the last 23 years and of this oration, but of course the many graduates that come through these doors, and to the ABC for illuminating and amplifying Indigenous voices in their support of the broadcast of this oration. This oration is a celebration of my father's life and his legacy, but this annual lecture has another dimension for our family because, of course, he was our dad. And it is always a bittersweet moment every occasion when we come to this oration because, of course, we're reminded how much we miss him. And we see his photo on the stage and people talk about him, and we're reminded, yes, of the space that's left in our lives. But it's another thing to miss a person for their role in public life. We all miss our parents and loved ones, but we particularly miss him also for his dual role as a leader. And as we stand on the brink of referendum in this country, it presents us with an extraordinary opportunity to bind this nation together with its first people, our greatest ever handshake, if you like, placed in the Australian Constitution. And it's now, at this time, that I miss him most acutely. I miss his leadership, his fearlessness, his ability to reach out and touch the Australian people with his words. And as his daughter, I miss the strength that he had as a father. Our people's cause was the central feature of his life. And in reflecting on his life, he looked back and he said, Aboriginal affairs was my way of life. It was everything. I was living and breathing it. And of course, lots of things have suffered as a consequence. My family, for example. You neglect your kids. I was often told, oh, you're neglecting your family. And I always said, my family comes second to Aboriginal affairs, which is absolutely ridiculous, he said. And he said it sounds stupid to even say it today, and that he ever dared say it. But that's what happened, he said. They all came second to Aboriginal affairs. And I acknowledge my mother here tonight, who maintained the family during his lifetime. And I cannot recall him coming to parent-teacher nights or necessarily reading our report cards, but he gave us an education in something much greater. He gave us an education in leadership, in what it is to create change, what it means to bring people together for a cause. And not only did he show us strength in grace, he reminded us that it is every bit as essential to find grace in strength. And with so many people dominating the media at this time, I wish to comment on the class of Aboriginal leadership to which he belongs. It was something I witnessed firsthand because he took us with him to meetings, to demos, to his office. He and the black leadership that forged much of the progress we see today in our communities were part of our life. Though this event is named in his honour and celebrates his leadership, the defining feature of his leadership was that it came from the grassroots. He knew leadership was a shared endeavour, a combined network of Indigenous people that connected him from the Torres Strait deep into Arnhem Land, across Queensland and into outback New South Wales, from the south of Western Australia right up to the Kimberley. He knew everyone. And it was a leadership that was forged right here in Sydney in the 1960s in the Foundation for Aboriginal Affairs. He was connected to our people across the country like the songlines that connect us across our lands and waters. And it was our greatest privilege as children to trail behind him. This generation of leadership are not the elites they have been painted as. Far from it. Like my father, who was born in a native institution, as it was called, they came from reserves and missions. They walked out of the town camps of Alice Springs, from remote communities like Yuendamu. They were domestic servants in their lives, wharfies, children who'd been removed from their families, young men and women from the streets of this city, and kids inspired from the freedom rides who came in from the bush, from shanty towns, on the riverbanks and outback towns. And together these leaders came together and forged a vision to rebuild our people in the aftermath of, yes, colonisation that had broken over us and in many instances broken us. In the precious 30 years I spent with our dad, I saw what real leadership looks like. That is leadership that is earned by being amongst and working with our people. It is not bestowed by a party pre-selection process or the media spotlight. Leadership in our community is forged sitting in the dirt, listening to our people, working towards consensus, building organisations, building people's capacity, talking with people, protesting on the streets, and on the inside within the corridors of power, negotiating with grace, and when that fails, going against all the odds, rejecting the status quo, paying the price of speaking truth to power. And still, when you are rejected and you have lost everything, having no regrets. That is what makes a great Indigenous leader. Even as the great generation of my father's leadership is coming to a close, 50 years of leadership people have given their lives to, people like Pat Anderson, Pat Dodson, Marcia Langton, Linda Burney, Pat Turner and Noel Pearson, being the youngest of this generation, they are still forging ahead. And I stand here today with them because my father is not here. In the company of these great Australians like this, I do not call myself a leader, but I have the honour of working alongside them and supporting their work. And I am here tonight because the vision my father believed in and they believe in still lives. The Australia he believed in was a reconciling, healing, equal country. This is on the ballot paper for the first time in more than a century. That's what Australians can vote on October the 14th. A vision for recognition and a request for our people to finally be heard and with respect. It has been a long journey, a lifelong journey, and just in over 20 days, it will be upon us. For the first time since 1967, the nation will have to collectively pause, just for a moment, if they haven't before, to think about our country's deep past and its future. This is a nation-building moment, a chance to make a change of profound symbolism that also delivers a practical benefit. And it can be achieved with just a few words. With these words, we are poised to accept the great richness of our history and the truth of our nation's foundation, which we have been hiding from for more than 200 years. The words are a question to every Australian, and this is the question. A proposed law to alter the Constitution to recognise the first people of Australia by establishing an Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander voice. Do you approve this proposed alteration? Only the Australian people can decide, not just the people in this room. For it is us, the Australian people, not the politicians, that can decide the content of our highest legal document, our Constitution. And at its heart, they must decide this: whether they believe that in being Australian, you are part of the human history of this continent, a history that traces our combined experience, 2,500 generations, over 65,000 years or more. In this amendment to the Constitution, we entwine our ancient Aboriginal past and our British foundations into one of the most successful multicultural nations in the world. This great country of ours that we love and share, this is what makes us unique in the world. It is what makes us Australian. Noel Pearson described this moment like Halley's Comet careering through the galaxies. I will not see another moment like this in my lifetime. This is the moment. Its significance for First Peoples is momentous. But for most non-Indigenous Australians, this will make not any material difference to their lives. For them, nothing will change. In accepting the hand of friendship offered by Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander people in the Uluru Statement from the Heart, it will be a moment of unity, of recognition and inclusion. But for our people, this moment is not just about symbolism. It comes with a guarantee for hope. Hope for a change in our lives to realise what we call the voice. Many Australians are unsure of what this voice means and what it is about. And tonight I wish to try and explain some of that. But first I must give context to why we want a voice. Indigenous Australians, of course, are not the only Australians who need to be heard. But Australia has treated no other group of Australians as shamefully as it has treated the first Australians. And this history is, of course, meticulously recorded. But the frontier wars are over. The mission days are gone, and it is not the purpose of the voice to dwell on them. But today, Aboriginal people, Aboriginal children, are born into hardship and disadvantage of a kind unknown to any other substantial group of Australians. Even if some people don't understand this, the facts show plainly, not only here, but in other First Peoples, in Canada, the US, Aotearoa, New Zealand, that the social status of First Peoples is a legacy of violence, dispossession and subjugation. Here in Australia, 1 in 2 of my people live at or below the poverty line. 1 in 2. But the purpose of The Voice is to find remedies for now, reasons for hope. And here's the other reason for The Voice. Every time we take even the smallest step towards lifting the Indigenous people out of the mire, Australia takes a step forward too. This is everybody's cause. And whatever happens at the referendum, it will not stop. This is a chapter in Australian history. And whatever the interruptions, in the end, it will be written. It can no more stop than Australian history can stop, than Australia itself can stop. Our dad died before his time. He died of kidney failure. He's a famous man, so we know his name. But in remote communities, we have 20 times the rate of kidney failure than non-Indigenous people do, 20 times. You can walk into a dialysis clinic in Alice Springs, which I often do to visit old people, and everyone strapped to one of those machines is an Aboriginal person. Kidney failure is just one of the many reasons Aboriginal men, like my father, died 10 years before most Australians. This is one of the social signifiers, our bad health, which is why it's so important that we see people graduating in health and medicine, our own people. Our health shows that we are on the bottom rung of Australian society. This position, as compared to our fellow Australians, is referred to as the gap. The absence of my father is the only gap I have experienced. His absence 10 years earlier than he should have been. My son, the only gap he will experience is that he is unable to meet his wonderful grandfather. I am a successful person on all accounts, and I have a good life. But my people on the whole do not. Australia has been good to me, but it has not been good to Indigenous Australians. And because I share my father's view and know how hard it was for him and his generation and the generations before him, the crimes, injustice, hypocrisy, the lies and failures, I'm here to carry on his fight. The cause is good and righteous. And when people ask me why I don't identify perhaps as strongly with my mother's genes, with my mother's history, I say because the fight is on the Indigenous side. And if anybody was to say to me personally what is often said about people like me, of mixed heritage, why not simply identify as Australian? I say, but I do. And it's why I fight for a better Australia. My father was born in poverty. Through sports and education he acquired here at this university, he managed to break the cycle. He showed what is possible. In my life, I've shown what's possible because of what he did. He appeared, like me, well-groomed, well-educated and articulate. But my father once said to a television audience, like you tonight, "Oh, you think everything is okay with Aboriginal people because I am where I am? Well, this is a load of crap. There is no real future for my people. I'm so much of an exception, it's not funny." Well, like him, I'm an exception too. When he talked of the lack of future for Aboriginal people, he was talking about the gap that has not closed. Those people for whom privileges do not exist. It is one of the privileges of growing up in this country to be granted opportunity, to have reason for hope, and sometimes see hope realised. The best thing we can do as a people, as a nation, is to give people opportunity and hope. That is just about my deepest conviction. And it runs all the deeper because among descended people of the First Nations having an opportunity, I am an exception, not the rule. And if I have learned one big, alarming, sometimes depressing thing from travelling the country in recent months and from wading through the press, the most depressing thing of all about this referendum that you read on social media is that people don't know what the voice is or why we want it. They have not read the words that were very carefully chosen after many years of deliberation amongst Indigenous leaders from all over Australia. This is a problem the Yes campaign has, because people do not willingly approve a measure they don't understand. And second, because not understanding makes them prey to a No campaign without much concern for the truth. So let me read the words to you that will take their rightful place in our Constitution. 129, Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander voice. In recognition of Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander people as the first people of Australia, this is the recognition part that talks to our enduring roots in this country. It goes on to say, there shall be a body to be called the Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander voice. And this is the guarantee to our people, a guarantee given to us as an extreme minority of just 3.8% that our voices shall be heard in this our own country. It then goes on to explain the Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander voice may make representations to Parliament and the executive government of the Commonwealth on matters relating to Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander peoples. And this is its function. The note about making representations is to say advice on matters relating to Indigenous people, not matters relating to nuclear submarines or foreign trade or interest rates, not matters relating to general health, housing and education, except the health, housing and education and other matters of concern to Indigenous people. And the final point of the wording is this: the Parliament shall, subject to the Constitution, have powers to make laws with respect to matters relating to the Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander voice, including its composition, functions, powers and procedures. And this ensures the people we all vote for, each with our own single vote, maintain the supremacy of democracy. And note the absence of any power in the voice matters relating to the Parliament itself. No power, just the right to give advice. This is what will be the provision in the Constitution. And people often ask, well, what is the detail? And that is a valid question to ask. Where is the detail? What is the shape? Well, the Australian people will be voting on that provision, because the Constitution does not contain the rich detail of legislation. It contains the framework in which our laws are made. For example, its provision in relation to defence is 3 lines, and I should have brought my glasses. It says, the Command-in-Chief of the Naval and Military Forces of the Commonwealth is vested in the Governor-General as the Queen's representative. It does not say how many tanks, where the defence bases will be, how many jets we'll have, how many men and women will serve. That is left to the Parliament, to our elected representatives who decide these matters. And as is outlined in the constitutional amendment, those same elected people, as they know, will decide the shape of the voice, how many people sit on it, what their terms of office are, And it will necessarily change over time, as it must, because all institutions in Australian society develop as we do. And as we find equality in this country through our engagement with government, through the voice, the needs of the voice will change too. And its role might become more centred on heritage and native title rights, and not the overwhelming inequality we currently experience in our own lands. This vision for constitutional recognition through a voice is not just one that's been driven from our leadership. It is from our people. And I need to reassure you that it has broad support, because in the media, if you watch it or listen to it, you wouldn't think so. Consistent polling shows that over 80% of Indigenous people support the voice and constitutional recognition. This data is taken from reliable, longitudinal studies. And if you don't believe the polling, look at our representative organisations, our democratic, grassroots, elected organisations from Indigenous communities across the entire continent. The land councils, for example. In the Northern Territory, we have 4. Underli Yakwa Land Council, Tiwi Land Council, Northern Land Council and Central Land Council. They represent thousands of Aboriginal people across hundreds of square kilometres, and all 4 of those land councils endorse the voice. These are grassroots elected representatives from their communities expressing their support for this voice, and they have for years. But it's not just in the Territory. Across the Kimberley, Cape York, and here in New South Wales with the New South Wales Aboriginal Land Council. This is widespread support, and it also includes voices in the Torres Strait. These organisations are democratically elected, representing thousands of our people. So when you support the yes vote, you know that you are standing with the majority of Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander people, and that counts for something. So whilst a small group of Aboriginal people on both the Conservative side of politics and the left side of politics may not support it, the big majority in the middle do. And we ask you to stand with us. The No campaign says the voice lacks clarity. People don't know what they are being asked to vote for, they say. Well, if this is so, then I would beg them to read the words that I have just quoted to every audience they address. Hand out the words in text. Point out to them the words that constitute a threat to the power of the federal parliament. It is just not there. To the Constitution. Show me the threat to the functioning of Australian democracy. Let them identify the passages wherein the danger to democracy lies. The bit that, for instance, says the voice will be a third chamber of parliament. Let them read out the opinions of constitutional experts. And these constitutional experts overwhelmingly agree that it is a safe and just provision that enhances our democracy. These are the very words of the Solicitor General, the highest legal advisor to government. He used the word enhance. Curiously, alongside these proponents of the no vote, who say that the voice will do grave damage to democracy, there are some that reckon that the voice is too weak an instrument to have an effect, that it will do nothing to help communities, that it will be powerless, fake, tokenistic, and that it is just virtue signalling. Well, I'm not sure how contemptible little these things are, that they can be a grave threat to our democratic institutions and also be, at the same time, useless. But let us say it is, in at least some sense, tokenistic. Well, a token of what? Remembrance of past injustice? Lives lost? Is it a token of recognition? Well, that would make it a token in the way that the War Memorial is a token, or that Anzac Day marches are a token, or Australia Day, or all the other things that could be called virtue signalling days and memorials and oaths and anthems and mission statements of mainstream Australia. It is not such a small and insignificant thing, a token. There is an important symbolic element to the voice, but it is not the main thing or the most important. Our opponents like to say that the voice racialises Australian politics. Well, I think we deserve some credit for rebutting this as politely as we have. This country was racialised from the moment Europeans arrived. It was racialised at Federation. Indigenous Australians have always been racialised. My father was racialised. Those towns in New South Wales he went to in the 1960s on the Freedom Ride, they were racialised. He tried to de-racialise them. And insofar as the voice is an effort to lift Indigenous Australians out of their unique disadvantage and into the democratic ruck, it too is an effort to de-racialise Australia. Charlie was born on a reserve for natives on the fringes of Alice Springs in 1936. His mother, Hetty, had been born to a white father and an Arrernte mother. We might wonder why that he identified as Aboriginal, perhaps, at that time, given the circumstances. The reason is Australia identified him as an Aboriginal person. As a boy, he was treated as an Aboriginal person. He didn't define himself. He was defined by others, by white thinking, by white policy, and white authority. His whole life and all he achieved would be defined by it. So it's really a bit rich after subjugating generations to racial policies, racial laws, and racial jibes for Indigenous people now to be accused of racialising the country. We must take a very deep breath and stay focused in our aspirations when we hear such commentary. As we must when we are told that we want to insert race into the Constitution. We don't. Race is already in the Constitution. It says, people of any race for whom it is deemed necessary to make special laws. It says, in contradiction of the now acknowledged fact that race is a concept without biological foundation. The Voice does not want to insert race into the Constitution or into the general debate. We are sick of race. The word has been poison to us. We loathe it and fear it. We don't want to insert race in the Constitution. We want to insert recognition of Australia's first people into the Constitution and give them a chance to enter the mainstream of this nation's life. As much as they are sick of racism, Indigenous people are sick of sympathy. If the sorry condition of many Indigenous communities is a sort of running sore of this nation's conscience, well, I can tell you that Indigenous people do not want to be a sore, a wound or a blot on this nation. These are not our preferred terms of our relationship with the Commonwealth. We may not know a way out of our predicament, and we may not have given up trying to find it. Some of us may have internalised the limits and the frustrations of our situation and in fact learned to live with them. We may have sunk into despair and self-destruction. Whatever the case, this is not what we want. The Voice proposes an alternative. It does not offer itself as the primary solution. In fact, solution is a word we might be wise to put aside because we've had a couple of centuries of solutions, including a couple that were expected to be the final solution. Murder in the first instance, and in the second, the doctrine of social Darwinism, according to which, by the laws of nature, Australia's Indigenous people were proposed to die out. We have had the solution of physical removal. the solution of taking children, the solution of Christianity, dozens of policy solutions. In some towns, we have solution brokers without solutions. So long as we take Indigenous people as a puzzle needing a solution, we can abandon that puzzle and cast it aside when it is too complex and intractable. We can throw our hands in the air and blame the puzzle itself. And before long, we're saying it's all too bloody hard. They're bloody hopeless. The whole bloody thing is hopeless. But taking responsibility for our lives is precisely what The Voice aims to do. The Voice will speak to Parliament, but it will also bring an eye and an ear to Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander communities. This relationship will be dynamic and ongoing, and it will involve hard work, critical judgment, tough decisions, honesty, accountability, compromise, and imagination in equal proportions. It will have to balance competing interests, claims, relative merits, long and short-term goals. It must establish what is working and what is not. And it must represent all Indigenous communities, not just a few. And it must encourage new voices, especially young voices. It must focus on the deepest problems in the most dire need. It will be according to principles like these that advice is formed and given to policymakers. The Voice will be like any other representative in a democracy. It will be like any other representative body in a democracy. And among other things, that means it will not be perfect, but it will have effect. And if it doesn't, well, after a decade, and if we've made no more progress with The Voice than without it, well, the government will have the power to reconstitute it and remake it to improve its function. So what is to lose by giving it a chance? Because clearly the government has been failing. One of its own advisory committees, the Productivity Commission, reported this year on its progress in closing what we call the gap. It stated, the Productivity Commission's first review of closing the gap agreement shows that government are not adequately delivering on this commitment. Progress in implementing the agreement's priority reforms has, for the most part, been weak and reflects a business-as-usual approach to implementing policies, programs that affect the lives of Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander people. Current implementation raises questions about whether the government has fully grasped the scale of change required to their systems, operations, and ways of working to deliver an unprecedented shift they have committed to. That's their own advisors. So we must do better. All of us do better. Government, working with the advice from The Voice, is the mechanism to do so. We know what will be lost in going on the way we are. In many places, another generation without hope, without opportunity. Hopelessness is a fair description of life for a great many of Indigenous people. The appalling figures for suicide, self-harm, drug and alcohol abuse, violence, incarceration, for health and mental health, for life expectancy, this all speaks of hopelessness. And The Voice will face this truth. It cannot succeed without facing this truth. And we know the problems very well, including the problem of looking away and the problem of wretchedness becoming a way of life. And that too is the purpose of The Voice. No good advice will come from shirking the facts. It is not possible here to address every claim the No campaign is putting forward. Some are silly, some are scurrilous, Some are disingenuous and some are outright lies. But a couple more need to be addressed. There are people well disposed to the Indigenous cause who say the voice is not enough and that we should oppose it for that reason. They want a treaty. Well, I would like one too. And I understand their thinking and respect the position they have taken, if not the alliances they have made. But I'd ask them to think about how long it has taken to get the voice to this point and how much longer it will take for a treaty. And we've seen in Victoria, it's taken 5 years to get to the first assembly. And while we're waiting for every legal obstacle to be negotiated and then face down an even more concerted, more hysterical no campaign, who will be attending to the needs of those struggling communities and people. The voice is rooted in the urgent need for remedies right now. Sooner or later, there will be a treaty with the Commonwealth. There must be. But the voice is for the here and now. And I'd say much the same to voters, tempted by Mr. Dutton's argument that we should limit the referendum to just constitutional recognition. He would leave the voice out of it because he says enshrining it in the Constitution is divisive. Then he says, if the coming referendum fails, a government he leads would hold another referendum on constitutional recognition, which of course would not be divisive. Well, Mr. Dutton, as we know, is a veritable guru of social harmony. And still there will be no change in his vision to the strategy employed for the last decade, which has yielded no significant closing of the gap and nothing to alleviate the plight of people in communities that he describes as squalid. Except Mr. Dutton says there will be a legislated regional advisory bodies, though his coalition partner says that he wouldn't support that plan, so it's all very confusing knowing what the No case wants to do. Also, we are told that the voice will not be able to agree on things. Well, that will give the voice something in common with pretty much every democratic body that ever existed, including the National Parliament. Its power will be dangerous, they say. Yet, unlike the mining lobby or the Farmers' Federation or the big consultancy firms and all the other Canberra lobby bodies, in the Constitution, the composition, functions, powers and procedures of this body will be determined by the Parliament. The voice will give advice which the government can take or ignore as it chooses. To ask for the voice is not to disregard the great majority of Australians or to ignore their struggles and achievements. Most people struggle at some time in their lives. Millions of Australian citizens have endured terrible hardship and trauma, including wars and genocides, and they still arrive, refugees from terror, misplaced misery, displaced from their lands, separated from their families and their cultures. Millions of others struggle on farms or in low-paid jobs with homelessness, chronic illness and injury. In country towns, in struggling suburbs, alarming numbers of non-Aboriginal young people take their own lives. Aboriginal communities are not the only ones affected by drug and alcohol abuse. So why do Aboriginal people get the voice? Because Aboriginal people suffer far more disadvantage than any other large group of Australians, and because it has been going on for so long, and because generations of men and women are still being born into misery and despair, and because whatever we're doing now is not working, because we're wasting the talent and energy of so many people, because there's a dynamic to the voice that might compel us, as never before, to realise and seize opportunities, to get our collective acts together. And because the story so far has been too often one of tragic failure and disabling anger, denial and guilt, we need to break with this reoccurring nightmare. And that when all is said and done, The aim of the voice is ultimately one of reconciliation. It will not fix every failure, and it will not fix anything overnight, and it is cheap to pretend that we think it will. But it might move the foundations a little, change the general perspective, get us working with new purpose and direction. The voice will be a symbolic step on the path to reconciliation, which is to say, one signifying the will to exist and come to grips together with the past. But it will also be a practical step, one that sets in motion a new dynamic that triggers concrete action. And that is why the voice must be enshrined in the Constitution, because a constitutionally recognised voice will be a permanent expression of permanent, concrete reconciliation. Everything is twice as hard if you're Aboriginal, my father once said, or so it was reported. And I still wonder at his courage. Courage to come here as the first Aboriginal man to attend the University of Sydney. That took courage. It took courage to push on through white Australia's bigotry and condescension into the highest reaches of the Australian public service and the world of national politics and political heavies. In 1965, when Australians were watching Africans, Americans and their white supporters confronting brutal racism in Mississippi, Dad reckoned attention should be turned to segregation in Australia. And he led a group of students on the Freedom Rides right out these doors and into the towns of New South Wales and all over Australia. Aboriginal people were living like that, pariahs, exiled in their own land, in derelict shacks on the fringes of country towns, banned from entering certain shops, hotels, public swimming pools, and even having a child in a hospital. Confronting the white citizens of these towns brought the nation's attention to racism that pervaded the archetypal fair go of Australia. That took courage too, and it had effect. Things were never quite the same again, and the passage of the 1967 referendum owed something to the Freedom Ride, and the voice owes something to it too. Every movement begins with an act of courage, and a nation's character is built on them. It would have been so easy for Dad to accept the curse that racism put upon him and to retreat, to not cause a fuss and not do the things he did. But sometimes you have to blink away your fear and doubt and push toward a harder but more helpful path. We give up so much when we close the door on people or leave it closed. Not only do we deny the flowering of their hopes, we also deny ourselves the inspiration that they might have otherwise offered us. Dad believed in the fair go. He was an Aussie bloke. He had all the attributes, a keen practical intelligence, an equally keen awareness of irony and a propensity to call a spade a shovel. He was a great yarn spinner and he loved sport and he was very good at it and he was a good mate to many and he had a profound idea to the attachment of the fair go. He was about as typical an Aussie bloke as an Aussie bloke could be. There was just one thing that set him apart from the ideal. His grandmother was Aboriginal. Charlie didn't think it should have set him apart, but it did. He was a fighter. He knew how racism hurts and embitters its victims. He knew how it corrodes societies and institutions. He knew what racism had done to Aboriginal people and he knew what it was doing to Australia, and he wouldn't accept it. He would not be a victim. He believed that the fight against the racist legacy of Australia's European history and the racist stain it left on the Australia of his time, and he was determined to fight, not only to right an historic wrong, and not only for Australian Aboriginal people, but for this, our country. He was nothing if not a patriot. And today, in less than 30 days, we ask the patriots of Australia to rise together to consider a better future for our nation, not just its First Peoples, but a nation that is united for generations to come. This is the invitation from the Uluru Statement from the Heart. We ask you to walk with us on that journey on the 14th of October. Thank you for listening.
Rachel, thank you for that powerful oration filled with so many searing observations about our country. Thank you so much. Presenting the 2023 Dr. Charles Perkins oration, please join me in thanking screenwriter, storyteller, and incredible Australian Rachel Perkins. As we bring tonight's event to a close, we're honoured to present musical icon Paul Kelly performing A Bastard Like Me, his very own tribute to the indomitable spirit of Dr. Charles Perkins. Thank you for joining us. And I'd like to invite Lisa back to the stage to join me in bringing tonight to a close. Please make her welcome.
An absolute tremendous honour to have you come and be here and to share with us your I can't say that word now, I wrote it down. Your utter energy, your love, your passion, your grace, your hope, your respect for a future. Tonight we get to see another profound example of Perkins' leadership right here, right now, with you. Thank you so very much, Rachel Perkins, for joining us and for sharing some extraordinary words. I think most people will agree with me that tonight's going to be a conversation at so many more dinner tables, not just between now and the referendum, but for many years to come. Thank you, Rachel Perkins. And we do have a rather interesting gift for you, if you would like to join us on the stage.
I was born in the bush near old Alice Springs, as far as you get from the sea. My mother was a fighter, my daddy was too. He never knew a bastard like me. My brothers and sisters are scattered like the wind, from the desert and the hills to the sea. Much too young, many died, but I have survived. So lucky, a bastard like me. Ooh, so lucky, a bastard like me. I have survived a hell of a ride. Nobody knows knows a bastard like me. Call me a stray or a dog every day. Call me a mongrel half-breed. Mongrels are strong, so if you take me on, watch out for a bastard like me.
In Australia today, we have one of the greatest social and racial scandals I've ever seen.
Better watch out for a bastard like me. I've fought all the way, and I fight every day. We'll try and stop a bastard like me.
In white terms, you could call me a success story. Big black Commonwealth car, a nice house in a good suburb in Canberra, a university degree. It's just a load of crap. I'm so much of an exception that it's not funny, it's tragic.
I've taken my licks, I've taken my kicks. I am a man of degree. I wear the scars, I earn them so hard. Every day in the lucky country.
We ask you, please, lady, go home.
Every day in the lucky country. I've taken my licks and I've kicked against the pricks. I'll try and stop a bastard like me.
Before we do conclude tonight, I just wanted to say a couple of thanks to Lisa and her entire team here at the university for making this happen. Those that are the team that are doing sign language tonight as well, and to the entire ABC team. Can you please give them all a round of applause? Thank you all so very much for coming. Good night.